to episode 3 of Ask the D&D Professors. I'm Elizabeth. I'm going to let the other two folks introduce themselves. So yeah, Chris, we'll start with you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Chris Compobowen. I am one of the members of the OpenTheGatesGaming research team. I'm the lead storyteller, self-professed forever DM, and yeah, on my day job, I'm a music history professor. So I found a way to make D&D even nerdier by combining it with opera. But yeah, that's me for now. I guess that's what's relevant. Will, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Will. I go by Kuklane anywhere you guys are online. I am not a professor, but I do have 2 master's degrees, if that counts for anything. I have run some games for you at PAX as of late. And yeah, my day job, I'm an engineer toiling away with manufacturing, and D&D is my release from the world.
Yeah, I haven't actually tried to get you to say you'll go to PAX Unplugged because it's much less convenient. But that is coming.
It is coming.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. We really need better titles, quite frankly. The goofy ones have gotten so far, but like when I've had to sign contracts for the group, it's been really awkward. Yeah, Open the Gates Gaming is my responsibility. That's the best way to put it. I'm a director of disability studies and an assistant professor of musicology at Virginia Tech. We've also got Atlas running stuff for us. Atlas, you want to say hi?
Hi, I've been here the whole time.
Atlas is making sure all the technology works, keeping an eye on chat, doing all those wonderful things. And we're also testing out a couple of new ways of handling audio in preparation for a cool event next week. You want to tease it a little bit, Chris?
Sure. It's going to be a live stream. I cannot yet tell you who exactly will be involved, but suffice to say that they are people that are known in nerd world. And it's about as best as I can put it, I think. Oh, and we're playing a game based on an opera because, as I mentioned, I'm a giant nerd. And this one is an extremely deep cut because it is an opera by the Russian composer Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. The opera is called The Invisible City of Katesh and the Maiden of Fevronia. And so it's going to be some like Russian fairy tale nonsense. It'll be fun.
It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
Those of y'all that initially found our channel may recognize one of the people. Going to say that. Other thing I'll say, July 15th at 11 a.m. is when we're going to start. And this is to raise money for Dots RPG, our partner organization, sister organization. They do really great stuff when it comes to Braille dice. I've actually got some of the metal Braille dice here. There's other Braille dice on the market. I will say theirs is the dice that seems to actually work for people who use Braille. These are the really cool metal ones. They've also got resin ones. They've got new colors coming. But this month, there are a number of live streams for video games, live streams for actual play with Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop games. So I think we're going to be the first one for the tabletop games. But hopefully this will be an annual event. So keep following all of our stuff. I think some announcements with links should be going live on our social media tomorrow. And there will be more information to come. But that brings me to the topic, and one reason so happy to have Will with us tonight. We want to talk about one-shots. And I think I only kind of thought of this after we went live, that the three of us are interesting ones to talk about this, because you've had to write a lot of them, Chris, and had to like pare them down.
Mm-hmm.
I've written one-shots that have lasted months.
That I've experienced.
On the other hand, I have had a successful one too that actually worked. We did at PAX East, and I'm gonna do again. And Will, you've run one-shots with us. It's kind of fun because I think we've all played and DM'd for each other, except maybe Will hasn't DM'd for Chris yet.
Not yet. One day.
Not yet.
It'll probably be a one-shot.
It's coming.
One day.
Well, maybe that's a good first topic then. Is like how how does one deal with the one becoming two, becoming three, becoming X number shot? Like what are I don't know, what are some kind of things you all have learned or encountered in having to deal with this issue of like, can we actually do this in one sitting?
I've got a lot of experience with that because I feel like everything I've done with D&D since I started has been an evolution from one shots to this is now a campaign,
Mm-hmm.
or even just like a loose set of adventure. We're not going to treat it like a serious campaign. It's just going to be a bunch of one shots that you're just happen to be playing the same characters, and you're just taking snippets out of their life, and it's like now they're level 5. Oh, now we're back to level 3. Now it's like you just kind of roll with it. But that my journey started off cutting my teeth on, and that's why I like one shots in the first place. Is they're great for beginner DM. When I started
Mm,
learning how to do this in 2020, like a lot of people did, but
same.
because they're concise, they have everything you need to know in one tidy package. Um,
Is
and
this what you're gonna say?
I mean, that is the one that I bought,
'Cause
knowing
it's
I wanted
this
to.
is the same one that was like my initial one shots were from this.
Yeah,
This
but
this is how I learned to DM. I
and
looked at mysteries.
that was the one that I ran two different groups. Um, but one was my wife's and some of her friends.
Yeah,
We
trying to TPK your wife and her friends is
yeah, you know, you got to do what you got to do. That, but that was the perfect case of my wife wasn't sure if she wanted to continue on doing this thing, so we just said let's just test the waters, right?
Yeah.
And so I came up with a way to hook these people. These are people that we knew, were friendly with online. That were friends of hers, and I just said, let's throw a group together. Let's just be easy about it. And we just started. I started with the first level in that book, Candlekeep
Mm.
Mysteries, um, and just to see how it would go. And they were like, "Let's keep going." I was like, "Oh, well, this isn't really a campaign book, but let's make it a campaign. I'll figure it out as we go." And so I just took their I started saying, okay, you got to give me more of your backstories, and I just kind of wove them together. That's where I found my strength as a DM was I could take everything and I could then strip every adventure for parts if I needed to, and just kind of fit in the thing that I needed to make it work for their backstories, so that they basically each had one shot that was like theirs, like their character had something, like
Ah.
a if you're playing Mass Effect or something, that's like the loyalty mission, right? Where it's like this
Right.
is
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
everything to do about this one adventure is centric to this character and their backstory. It's some problem that was hanging over their head or hasn't
Mm.
been resolved, or maybe I just had to create something that had to be solved out of whole cloth because I had free reign to emotionally damage them. So, but I think even before that, I think I was just taking one shots that I found on Drive Through RPG,
Mm.
uh, DM's Guild. I think
Yeah.
Winghorn Press might have been one of the first couple ones.
Mm.
The Carver's Cave or something like that. That which was a bit of a. It was if I could go back and watch myself run that again, I would die of cringe because it was just.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to
we
incorporate
don't talk about
music.
that.
Yeah, I was trying to do really cool things, and it was just like
Listen,
I
we
was
all have
trying.
to start somewhere.
I know, but then you learn.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but yeah, that my journey has been my whole journey with DMing has been a road of just one shots that I've woven
Mm.
together, or just there's a separate group of people that I've started playing with. I was in their Discord. I was like, "Hey, I'm a DM. You want to play some
Hmm.
D&D? Hey, uh,
Yeah.
it's like a gateway drug." And it
Hmm.
was the same thing. It started off as we'll just create a bunch of characters. We'll just do a one shot. I think it was a well-known one for starting people out who've never played D&D before. It's
Mm.
called The Wild Sheep Chase,
Oh yeah.
and that one's a good one because it's got a little bit of everything and different endings depending on what choices are
Mm.
made. And it was great. It was great, and these people were hooked. And so I was like, okay, well, we'll keep it easy breezy. They didn't really want to like commit to some things. So I was like, all right. So I came up with level 2. I scoured the internet for level 2, level 3, just to kind of create a roadmap. And we came up, and I just like created this, loose travel of like you went up the Sword Coast, and this is where your next adventure takes place. And
Yeah.
um, trying to get a feel for what people want to play. What kind of adventures, mysteries you want, dungeon crawls. All the different types of one shots out there are important because
Yeah.
I also learned some people don't like dungeon crawls. I learned because they take like 3 or 4 times longer. But I've done.
Yeah, and it's interesting because players don't always know what they like, right? Because one shots are a great way to get new players playing, but also
Yes.
to get to try out classes you wouldn't commit to for long term, or character concepts that can be a little bit jokey. And I do think one shot is like notoriously a misnomer.
Yes.
I think you really have to think about that history of D&D, right? Like this is something that comes from a time before the 1.5 million distractions of the 21st century world. But also think about the personal history of a lot of people involved, right? Like, sure, if we were 14, 15 years old, maybe you could grab the people in your neighborhood and just order pizza and live in a basement and play a one shot for 4, 5, 6 hours.
Yeah.
So even as I joke about like one shots are often not one shots, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're adults. Most of the time we can't really get together for more than 2 hours at a time. So you kind of have to plan and go with it. But when you are limited, I'm kind of curious how you structure that. But anyway, yeah, Chris, sorry.
I was just going to say, like, and frankly, like, it's kind of narratively unsatisfying to try and really push something into to make it fit within a certain amount of time, because it's like, okay, well, that was cool, but we have to like move on because otherwise we're not going to be done in 4 hours or 3 hours or whatever. And I will say the only successful no, that's not true. I'm gonna say the only successful actual one shot that I've ever done was 4 hours. It was actually the first version of Kitesh, this thing that we're gonna. Oh, my dogs are here. This thing we're going to stream next week. But we also, did plenty of one shots for playtesting, but those were even more abbreviated and even more on rails. But to your question, Elizabeth, and I guess it's related, right? Like, how do you deal with that issue of trying to do something that can actually fit? I don't remember where I saw this. I think this was Matt Colville's channel. MCDM has like what is it? It's like how to running the game.
Running the game. Yep.
Yeah.
Great series.
Yeah, and I think it was in there somewhere in one of those videos that I don't remember where it was. Anyway, point is someone said, think about encounters and plan, or like, an encounter takes an hour basically, unless it's a combat encounter that's complicated, in which case it's going to take more. But like an encounter is not just combat, it's also social, it's also exploration. And so I tend to think in encounters when it comes to building one shots. And if you're trying, and if every encounter takes at least an hour, then 3 is basically your max. And this gets back to the thing of like it being somewhat narratively unsatisfying. It's like, all right, well, how are you going to get a story across in like 3 scenes, basically? But I think people who play D&D before, like they know what they sign up for when they get a one shot, right? Like it has to kind of be on rails, because it's like, all right, we're trying to get through this thing. And maybe that's like where things can spin out a little bit, is like if you are not trying to keep it on rails, which again, like you don't have to, like that's absolutely not required. But if you're not actively trying to keep it on rails, that's where I think, the potential to become a 2, 3, 4 shot, just a proper adventure. That's where that comes from, I think.
Do you think we need more in between one shots and campaigns? Right?
Yes.
Like I am a fan of like smaller adventure arcs now.
Yeah, like 3 to 4 sessions. Yeah, like I think what's interesting, you were talking about like the history of D&D and early D&D. Like that's what it was, right? Like what you were just describing, Will, earlier with like these are vignettes from the life of these adventurers, these characters that we have, right? That's what it was. It was like you went on an adventure, like you went to the dungeon, you killed the lich, you stole the money from it, and then you went back to town, and then you spent all your money in downtime. And you maybe that took 3 or 5 sessions to get through the dungeon crawl. Then you and your friends didn't meet for a while, and then you come back, and it's like, all right, we all leveled up, and now we're going to do another one. So in some ways, it's like a reversion to an older style of playing. But I think this is also maybe where, like, the usual, actual play phenomenon and how that affects things, like, and the emphasis on heavy role playing and a lot of these streamed things. That also, I think, affects our perception of what D&D should be, and then that in turn influences how we think about one-shots or how we think about short stories, as it were, in D&D form. So
Yeah, I'm thinking about this idea of railroading.
Mm,
Because it by itself, it often has a very negative connotation. It's like we're not
Sure.
giving the players enough freedom. But we were looking at some stories last week where the sandbox was the problem, right? Like
Right.
too much free. And I think that's the number one thing that people needed early on was, I think this is why the decision guide is one of the more popular tools that we have. That there is something very inaccessible about the world being too open, because it's
Mm,
putting a lot of pressure on somebody to try to understand what's expected of them.
yes.
And that it gets easier the longer you play, but going back to actual play, that stuff is so much more railroaded than we think. In a different way, it's structured differently, but there are these cues and times to regroup off camera and stuff like that. I feel like the first one shot I've written from scratch that really worked was that the mystery one that I did, drawing from the deck of many things. And I will say the deck of many things has a great, it looks like a tarot spread when you're doing it, but a really great way to help you conceptualize it. And it very much does encourage that, like, a limited number of encounters kind of view. And they do have versions that are longer, but the way they have the spread for the one shots like that. And I think, for my money, having a few encounters that you have to get to, yes, is a railroad. The fun part is trying to make them loose and flexible enough in their solution that the way they get there is different. I mean, for that one shot, I was playing a lot with riddles, which, yes, have one solution, but also can be swapped out at any time. Some players are going to just get the riddle, but there were also moments where we're like trying to design things in the map architecturally to prompt responses from the riddle, or different ways they might try to get at the information. Are they going to try to talk to somebody? Are they going to try to, make skill checks, that sort of thing? And for that one, there was a centerpiece, like minor combat before the big bad, that could actually be solved without any real fighting, or could be solved entirely from fighting. Could be fixed with a spell, could be fixed with an item. So maybe that, just because I'm not tooting my own horn here, I'm saying, like, I've tried it so many times, and this was the only time it kind of worked.
Mm,
Even the very last thing that happened with the big bad, I'm on this kick right now where I feel bad about forcing players to solve problems with violence. Perfectly fine if they choose to solve them that way. That's part of the game. But, like, I'm really interested in the so I guess this is less worried about narrative railroading than, like, moral choice in some sense.
mm.
But the rewards the players got at the end were different based on how they chose to resolve a situation too. Um,
And
so
I think
yeah, I
that,
mean, I think there's a balance, is what I'm getting at,
yeah,
right? Like, we tend to think either it's a railroaded narrative where there's one way through, and that's the spectrum from that to open world, when really there's a lot more nuance.
yeah,
Like
and
the
I think
autism
like
spectrum. Anyway,
I
and
think feel like
gender.
players
Sorry.
want their choices to matter, right? Like, so
Mhm.
there are ways, even within, and this is also related to a larger thing, I think, about storytelling, right? In terms of, there's only a limited number of stories, right? Nothing new under the sun, something the ancient Greeks were saying, right? Like, there's only so many ways we can tell a story about humans. Um, and so the question becomes less one of, like, where is this story going, but more like, how is this story being told? And so to me, the kind of narrative railroading of, like, we're going to start here and we're going to end up here, that's fine. It's like, what's all the stuff in between? And you can, as you were, pointing out, provide lots of ways that the journey, right, can come out differently depending on the choices the players make. And they may not know that in the moment, but I think having that, even if only in the background, is important, right? Because then it does make the players' choices matter. Sorry, Will, I feel like we've been yakking.
No. I did enough talking earlier. No, I agree with you. I think when it comes to what makes it like a good, self-contained story, I think one where you can boundaries are good because it keeps the story moving and you don't just spin off into other things. Um, but the nice thing about those boundaries, it sort of gives you that freedom to kind of just be your character in the ways that you can find a way to it helps with the role play element. So you're not like focused on like if you just like, yeah, we know which way we gotta go. So we could just kibitz, so just, do whatever about D&D that makes, fun. Like
Pondering
when I
how many
was
belts and buckles a character is wearing.
exactly.
To pull from an
Um,
example about a week old.
yeah, I mean, and when I was playing your Riddle of Many Things, we were in a very self-contained space, and so all these clues that we were getting, it's like, well, I mean, clearly there's somewhere around here. We gotta, it's like being in an escape room. It's like there's only so many places to look. So,
Whereas
Right.
the other
right,
group tried to set fire to the tavern, which I do thank you for
I
once showing restraint and not
I,
setting
I
my
tried.
tavern on fire.
I tried very hard not to.
Yeah.
It was very tempting at one point. Um, but I think the other thing that makes for good one shot is like when because like you said, there's nothing new. There's always like the bad guy, so to speak. But I
Right.
think if you can do a little something in there, like a mystery, you have a red herring or uh, just something to do, sort of flip the expectations a little bit. Um, I will say like your clever fox. I'll say one shot
I think I
loosely.
knew that wasn't really going to be a one shot, but I didn't think it was going to take as long as it did.
No, but if
But yeah. There was
the
one version I totally thought that was a one shot.
there was a moment where I thought, "Oh, I know where this is going now." When the main time mechanic kind of reared its head,
Yeah.
and then you flipped it on its head. But I was like, "No, there's still consequences." And it's like, oh, oh.
Yeah, to kind of fill folks in, it has a little bit, which I don't even think Chris made it this far. I don't know that we're going back to it though. You spent
So
the
I
whole
don't.
time talking to a tree, buddy. Um, there is
Listen, you
a
spent anyway.
yeah, I know.
You've talked your fair share of animals. I'll just put it that way.
I've talked to my fair share of trees.
I've blown up taverns.
Chris and I honestly have a publication that will be coming out within the next
That's
year or
true.
so, probably about talking to trees in D&D. That's not really what it's about, but it is.
It features.
But this one has a little bit of a Groundhog Day mechanic, but it's not straight up Groundhog's Day in that certain things don't reset. Um, and
Which
it
we learned the
yeah,
hard way.
which is really the only way to learn it. Y'all just took the most aggressive path to
That
get
wasn't
there.
on purpose. Remember, I was trying to detect thoughts. This is
Y'all said you wanted murder mysteries, and then you did most of the murdering, but that's okay. There were
no.
consequences, and they lived them out. But it is a similar thing. Anyway, sorry, you had a
We're
point.
we're getting off
Totally
track.
derailed.
Yes.
Uh,
What was the original point we were talking about?
I don't know.
this
I do
this is
have
where the
I have a
structure of
segue.
things and the mechanics that you
Ah,
can
yeah.
use. You can play with the story a little bit, so that like time, for instance, is I've played a couple one shots where time was like a mechanic, in different ways. I think some of my favorite one shots are ones that play with things like that,
Ooh,
where
I have one. It's a
you know,
survival mechanic that has. It's like a survival one that has a time mechanic. It's gonna.
sure, yeah,
It would be at least 4 or 5 sessions. You haven't. Neither of you have played it. I will bring it out one day.
there we go.
Yeah.
But
It-
yeah, I don't know if you all have a favorite one shot in mind, like whether it was something somebody came up with out of their own head, or was published by a third party or official. But I think one of my favorite ones are ones where there's some unique thing involved, that it's not just a go to the dungeon, find the thing, the MacGuffin, kill a monster in the process, return, get reward. Like that's formulaic.
Yeah.
It works. It works. But it's nice when it's like, oh, now you have to do this again because you screwed up. But there was a little thing that now you can reset the dungeon. Now you can do it again, but now you know what to expect.
Yeah.
But but now things are a little different. So,
I
but
think one thing that I was thinking of just now, and I'm getting to like the actual question, but I was thinking about Ginny D like published, or no, she didn't publish the book, but she was talking about it on her channel about like what was it like active, basically like flipping around the motivations within D&D, right? Because D&D is based on fantasy stories, and this is what's in the book. Fantasy stories are responding to external threats, basically. Like the narrative impulse, the conflict that sets off the story is set. Something else sets that up. The BBEG, right? So you're constantly responding to somebody. And I think that's fine, right? Like, that's a lot of stories are like that. D&D does not lend itself particularly well to other kinds of narrative conflict, like internal psychology, right? Like it's harder to do that in D&D. Not impossible, but harder. But I think so that's kind of the background to then what I'm going to say about the one shot. The one shot that I feel kind of proudest of was one that I've written myself, so maybe that's self-aggrandizing, I don't know. But it was the one I ran at PAX, La Llorona, right? So based on this story, this myth from Mesoamerican folklore of this weeping woman who, in the story, in the kind of original legend version, she, falls in love with a man. They get married. They have children. And then he goes off with some other woman. She then, in her rage, murders the children and then drowns herself. And then she is cursed to wander eternally, searching for her and weeping for her lost children. So that's the original story. It's very dark and grim. And of course, like, so I wrote a one shot. I won't give it all away, but basically, I included a twist in there about like what are motivations for why do people do the things they do? Why is La Llorona, weeping for her children in this case? And so for me, it was a really fun combo of having that twist, being able to tell this story, but also to set up this very particular kind of scene and cultural backdrop to tell this story and to familiarize people with not just the legend, but there's also a really beautiful folk song of La Llorona. It's different than the legend, but they're not necessarily unrelated. And so I incorporated that into the one shot too. So like there was a certain amount of, because I am an incorrigible professor, a certain amount of pedagogical stuff going on in this as well. But yeah, that one, and that one also I managed to get to about 3.5 hours or 3 hours. And that's actually something else too, is like the more that you run a one shot, the easier it gets to kind of keep things moving.
Very few people have the privilege of running one shots repeatedly.
It's true.
That is one thing. There were some folks that showed up, played our games, were hugely complimentary. We deserved all of that, but also there was part of me that was like, yeah, well, we get to run them a few times and figure it out, Like I had a practice round for mine, and that was hugely helpful. But no, I like what you're saying. It's bringing up another thought for me, which I don't think it's a controversial thing for me to say, that once you start DMing, it changes how you approach playing. You can often spot DMs at your table, even if they're new, because it's not just an awareness of mechanics or like knowing certain things. It's how you understand the game working and how you understand your role in a party. And I remember, although I was trying to do a lot of one shots early on, one of the things I had the hardest time with was figuring out how to design a character that fit a one shot. Because I don't think playing in a one shot and playing in a campaign are the same animal, both in how you're approaching other players. Because like if it's a campaign, it's fine to just steal the spotlight for a session. Because the next session it might be about someone else, like you're talking about, Will, with like stringing one shots together that can be about different characters. You're also having to get a handle on your mechanics really quickly. I remember the first time we did like a double-digit one. Is it like infiltrating the temples, Chris? I played an artificer, and there were too many
Oh,
mechanics for
yeah.
me to get a handle on. But then also just what kind of backstory? Because you don't have as much time, but it's not rewarding to not do that at all. So anyway, I'm curious about your
Yeah.
thoughts on playing a one shot, both of you. Like, what's different? What's the same?
I would say it's like a practice run, right? It's you're just playing with an idea. I've like definitely used one shots to like almost beta test a character idea that I may shelve for
Because just
uh
burn down multiple taverns.
yeah, no, well like in Broglio, my Aarakocra wild magic sorcerer is exactly that. Like I was just I actually had played that in a completely different one shot as like a level 8 or something. And then I enjoyed playing that character so much when you had invited me to play the Clever Fox. I was like, I got to do this character, try it and give it one more
I'm giving
go.
him garbage, but it's a really fun character.
And then again when we followed up with Ketterdam, uh, uh, continuing on with that character, I can see playing that character as like long term.
I mean, that character's even donated to Virginia Tech, so there
It
you go.
has, yes, officially it's canon.
As soon as you got to
Uh,
hear Doug say his name, which was
yeah,
fun.
Broglio the Great, yes. And it was one of those characters where it's a Joe character by 100%, but honestly, it's like one of those characters that could easily turn into something if I ever wanted it to. But playing in a one shot is a great way to try something new and just get out of your comfort zone a little. Because it's like, okay, so what if you don't have an optimal character? So what if you don't have like a backstory that's filling 3 novels? You know, like I Cugs is a character I played with Elizabeth in a campaign,
Love
an actual
Doug's.
campaign. But Cugs was originally supposed to be like just a filler character. I just a stand-in while somebody
Yeah,
was
we weren't
unavailable.
sure if you were
Yeah,
playing
maybe.
longer, if you would even keep
Yeah,
that character if you were, and yeah, Cugs is great.
yeah, or if I was
Yeah.
cool or anything like that. But Cugs was just, yeah, I'm a dirty goblin, circle of spores druid, and yeah, you found me in a closet, and I was just gonna do this for a couple sessions,
Okay.
and I haven't talked
With
like
a
Cugs in a long
stick
time.
that talks to you, yeah.
Yeah, and I got a stick
Yeah.
that talks to me.
We've never even really
Cordy.
gotten to the bottom of that, and we're too scared
You
to
guys
ask.
deliberately ignore the Cordy, yeah, because I talk to my staff, and the staff talks to me, and that was it. That was the conceit of the character. There was no depth to it. And it's turned into something completely. I've built upon that with this character because I actually love the character. Um, it's like these weird characters grow on me um, more than anything.
I feel like it's quite common for people to run joke characters in one shots, and then when it inevitably becomes a multi-shot, then it's like, oh wait, what else does this character care about?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
Gosh,
which is fun.
Gustavo making Chad like a real character. In
Indeed.
Tosca, which we're releasing those later this summer. Yeah, I was
Mhm.
just playing. The whole thing was I'm just going to be the embodiment of toxic masculinity. Like I just want to see what happens. And we had like a very dark plan for this character. We're going to do a talk back episode after these air because Dakota's having to edit a lot of stuff out because I was like trying to alienate the other players so I could do this like I'm going to turn into a villain partway through. Mostly because I wanted a break from filming for a few days, and that seemed the logical way to do it.
And that's also why
It
we
did
have
not work
safety
because
tools.
the party did not want to give up on
Mhm.
this person. It was wild. But I was playing with Gustavo, and Gustavo, without giving too much of it away, just had so much humanity at the table that like he was making my character grow against his will. Like there was no
Yeah.
way for
Yeah,
and we didn't want it to be this like, oh, you're not toxic anymore. That was not the story we were telling. Chad's a mess
Right.
beginning to end. But Chad has these moments where he's like starting to get it and like starting to let go of a little bit of the resentment he feels towards Gustavo's character who's a half brother. That's as far as he gets, but
Yeah. He ended
it is
up
it
a
is
different style
interesting.
of mess than where he started.
Yeah, exactly. But it is interesting how that was really a one-trick pony joke character that
yeah.
accidentally acquired
Mm,
humanity at a few moments. Um,
yeah.
but class is the same
Well,
thing.
so
I never wanted to be a paladin until I played
yeah.
Freddy, and now I'm obsessed with them.
Yeah. So the other thing I'll say too, one thing that I've found as a player of one shots is that I often use them as ways to flesh out my own homebrew world. Because
That
I'll
is
be like,
true.
oh, okay, I do this a lot, actually.
I'm always DMing for Homebrew
And
Chris. I love it.
yeah,
I genuinely do.
because
I don't know how I'm coming across because I'm autistic, but like I
no, it's
genuinely
fine.
do. And they're always just
It's
like shirtless and in the middle of a Slavic folktale.
well, I mean,
It's great.
yes, they are frequently shirtless. They're from Mesoamerica analog, but like which
Which
the
means you
climate
can
there
never
is
put any
tropical.
clothes on in his mind.
You know,
Well, yeah.
Okay, it
Anyway,
was a Circle of Fire druid. Okay, they're
it's
right.
fantasy. It's
I'm making him
fantasy.
sound more ridiculous
Yeah.
than he is, but
Yeah, it was a volcanologist druid, Circle of Wildfire, which is very fun.
he's like
But the
producing his
point
own heat.
is, what is my point? Basically, like it is a
You're
place to
testing out your
try
homebrew.
out. Yeah, you're testing out homebrew, and also like I find that coming up with that character concept and then trying to figure out a way to insert it into a one shot is kind of a good spark for me to then flesh out. Okay, well, if that's what this character is, what are the consequences of that, or rather, like what happens in the world to produce this character? So I'm kind of like reverse engineering the world in a way by
Yeah.
saying, okay, here's a character. What happens? Which is a fun way to kind of reverse the process of world building, where it's like, let me just do all this, like, what is the economy, like what is the
Yeah.
land mass, blah blah blah. Here it's like, what is this one person, and what had to happen to produce this one person?
Yeah.
And in fact, that's how I've written a big chunk of
What
one
had
of
to
the like
happen?
factions in my world.
What had to
What
happen
had to
to
happen?
produce Imbroglio? I'm sorry. But it is a really interesting impetus. I mean, Chris probably knows this even more than Will, because I think I behave better on Sunday nights. Which is really saying something. But I do tend towards characters with really long arcs.
Mm,
I'll have a
See that? Yeah.
throwaway idea and I won't let go of it. And months later, I'm building a real estate empire that's going to be cover for Harper's. Who knows? Who knows? I'm trying to convince. There was one point I was trying to convince Chris I was like putting quest money back into this, and I had like a manager for the tavern who was running it, and I was trying to get him to like track the profits so I could invest it in there and like make this a tourist destination to
I,
attract like better visitors, which would attract like better merchants because I wanted magic items.
I
And
recall having to come up with some economic like mechanics. Anyway, continue.
it was nuts, but it that does not apply to one shots at all. Like it made it really
Exactly.
hard for me to play because initially there was like a Christmas Carol one shot I was supposed to live stream with Alice in the University Libraries before we even started working on this stuff.
Mm,
And she had this intense backstory I can't even remember now, and it would not have worked. Like it would not have worked. What I was doing was not going to work. Um, yeah, it makes it tricky, I think. But I like this
yeah,
idea of like you're picking a thing to explore, and you're not
Yeah.
trying to pick
You're
20
you're
things to explore.
It's a great tool, whether you're a player or a DM. You can stress test ideas because now that you're putting them out
mhm.
there, you're bouncing off other people who might be, interacting with these characters in the future in some way, shape, or form. No, I get it's a wonderful little laboratory to
Yes.
experiment, and there's no consequences. And I think that's what, as a player, it's so nice to just. It's like you're letting your hair down as a. Like I don't have to worry about where this character is going because I may never play this character again if I don't like it, if I don't like the subclass. So I can just focus on being the character and whatever the task at hand is, and I don't have to worry about okay, well, what's this character's moral
Mm,
arc? Am I the roguish, never do well, and I got a heart of gold or
yeah.
something, you know,
Yeah.
or
Well, and this is like maybe another thing, not to take it back to railroading versus sandboxing. Oh, sorry, I had an internet blip, I think.
Oh, you're
Um,
good. We can hear
um,
you.
anyway, basically, like, the nice thing about having constraints on. Okay, good. the nice thing of having constraints is that it allows you to act freely within those constraints, right? So if you have a kind of, you know that, yeah, this narrative is very strictly delimited, like we have to get through this, and it's like, okay, those are my guide rails, right? I can do anything I want in it within that. So yes, and that's very freeing. And so yeah, it's as you were saying, right? Like Will, it's like it's a laboratory in a lot of ways. Like it also can be a way to like practice role playing, right? Is like here's this
100%.
or like practice a stupid accent, which I do
What I
not
do
infrequently.
all the time.
You
All
two are
the
both
time.
really good at that, and I'm not. I mean, we're, Chris, you've already hinted at this like Slavic fairy tale thing going. And yeah, when we were session zeroing, which I think is just as important, by the way, whether it's a one shot or not, and we can talk about that a bit later if you want. But one shot or campaign, it's still good to have the session zero conversations. I remember being like, yeah, I took 10 semesters of Russian. Like my last semester at Virginia Tech, I accidentally wrote the wrong paper in Russian and the wrong paper in English. Like that's how good my Russian was that I switched then. I don't know that I can speak any of it now. I cannot do a Russian accent while speaking English. I can't. I don't know what is wrong with my brain. You're not going to hear it. Same thing with like French or like I cannot. I admire both of you for the accents and the like.
You just have to try a little bit harder and find the
I'll
way.
do like shading of voices. I do catch myself occasionally having characters that get more Appalachian or more Michigan, but a lot of that I think is so subtle other people wouldn't even be hearing it.
I just
So it's
listen
just
to
in my
hours
head.
and hours of something with the accent I'm looking for, and I just try to osmosis it into my head.
It's a good idea.
That's smart. One
It's
thing I've
also,
tried is
smart maybe, but depends on what I have to listen to.
that's fair.
Gets the job done.
True. Yep. Yeah.
One thing I've tried, and I am in no way anywhere near a voice actor or anything like that. I have no idea what I'm doing. But one thing that has kind of semi-worked has been, like if I wanted to try and put on, because I speak Spanish and English. I don't really have much of an accent in either one. And so like speaking English with a, vaguely Latin American accent. I grew up in Miami. It's all vaguely Latin American. It's all a mishmash. Speaking Spanish with that kind of an accent is really hard for me. But the thing that I've tried to do, and I think it's probably, hopefully not too offensive, is, trying to basically use the vowel sounds of Spanish, but then put them into English. So like one thing that I was doing with one character was I was like kind of like practicing. I like literally at the table or like in the car, I would say what I wanted to say in Spanish first, so I had the vowels, and then say it in English while trying to maintain the vowels. And that kind of worked.
There's a
process. But the nice thing about one shots, yeah, there was a process, but then the one shot, like I could do this, and if it was kind of like, oh, I don't know that I like this, it's fine, right? Or it's like, oh, this worked, great, I'll keep using this. Yeah, I've always been able to do a stupid Russian accent. I don't know if I watched too much like Rocky and Bullwinkle when I was a kid.
I love it. It's great. I'm 100% here for it. That is probably one of my biggest insecurities with DMing. I will change my voice in certain ways, but it's interesting because I've got 11 nieces and nephews. I read bedtime story. Like I do all the stuff that like a lot of my friends that are parents have done to get good at doing voices. I'm just really bad at it. It quite frankly could just be like a total mental block. But that kind of brings me to something that I think is we just have to hammer home every single episode of this, which is like there is no one way to play. There's no one way to DM. Like everybody has their own pieces. I'm kind of curious, both from the perspective of things you've written yourself, and when you're using pre-written one-shots that you're doing as written or adopting. I'd love to know more about how you prep them and what is actually in front of you when you're running them. And one impetus for this question is that Wizards of the Coast just released the Dragon Delves book. And they have completely changed the first page of these one-shots. Yeah, mine is over here too, but yours is prettier, Chris.
I don't buy a physical copy.
I think if I hold it back far enough. Well, that's because,
I'm a digital nerd.
Actually, I'm not going to.
I have nowhere to.
On here
I don't
in
have
case
storage
Lisa's
for
listening.
books. I have some.
I think if I hold it far enough back, you're not going to be able to see any specifics, so I won't ruin it for any of you. But it has like, here's your plot points. Here's how you should prepare. Here are the stat blocks that you're going to need. Here's the NPCs. What stat block goes with them? What role they play? What location they're in? Like it gives you the ingredients up front. And I remember Gustavo talking to us about, and I think it was when we were all running one shots for our playtest for the OTG tools when this came up. But the idea of like, what if DMing and how we write this is more like a recipe book? And this felt like very prescient because it looks like now they're doing it this way in the official ones.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm curious.
Yeah, Gustavo
how
was
do
the
y'all
one
prep?
talking a lot
What do you
about
have?
that.
Yeah, what do you have in front of you? And we can ask him about it next week. He'll be here next week. But yeah. What do you prep? Because I find myself over preparing for a lot of one shots, and then simultaneously, like if I over prep, I'm not as responsive to the players. But you also don't want to be under prep too. It feels like teaching, where there's those studies that early career academics, the more time they put into prepping a lesson, like the more lesson planning they do, the more notes they have, the worse the outcomes for the students. That we do tend to over prep and then not be responsive. So anyway, yeah, that's a lot of preamble.
Some of the best lessons I've ever taught were ones where I was like, I had a migraine this morning. I think I have 2 discussion questions. Let's go. And I distinctly remember that class being really great. And on a similar way, actually the first time I ran Katesh for Elizabeth and you and the normal crew, I wrote that in my head walking back from campus in 30 minutes. And then I got home and I scratched down some notes on paper, and then I ran it. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, in part because like I knew the opera, I knew some of the things the plot beats I was going to draw on and so on. But I think like this is also where like how you're building it helps. And granted, I don't know that I've ever actually run a published one shot. That can't be right.
I think it's right. Because you've run
Yeah.
campaigns for us,
So I've only
not for me anyway.
And I've run.
I know you have.
I've run
friends.
multi-shot adventures.
I do know you run D&D for
debatable.
other people.
Not frequently. But I've run like short adventures that are published modules, but I don't think I've ever run a published one shot. And so I've only ever written them for myself. And this is where prepping by encounter, I think, helps. In that it's like, okay, I know the outlines of what's supposed to happen in this encounter. I have characters. What?
Radiant. You did one from Radiant Citadel.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. But that actually was a multi-shot. I don't think those are supposed to be one-shots necessarily. Anyway, but yeah, it was Fiend of Hollow Mine. Was the one I was thinking of, which was super fun. I like that one a lot.
I had fun in that one.
It was good. I love all those adventures. They're so cool. Radiant Citadel is by far my favorite published module they've done. Anyway, point is, like, to me, prepping the encounters, like, you have a sense of what each encounter, what the point is, right? What is important for the story in each encounter. So like, so I'll use the La Llorona one as an example. The first encounter, quote unquote, is them getting to the town and them trying to figure out what's going on, gathering evidence, like what's happening with this ghost or this specter. And so, I have a list of NPCs. Of course, you always have to be ready to improv some random NPC that they talk to. Or, it's like you have to be ready to shunt them to a different NPC when they go to talk to rando number 3 over here in the town square. It's like, oh, wait, this person knows the priest in the temple. Let's go talk to them. That sort of thing. And then the second encounter is like travel to a place. And so then there's like, I know what they're supposed to do in this. I know why this is like important for setting the scene for the story, etc. And then the final encounter and a half is like fighting, right? Or and then the consequences of that, or like finding or evidence, things like that. So yeah, and then having the basic outlines of that in mind and written down, right? I find that to me, I usually run with like 2 pages or 3 pages, depending on how long it is. For a one shot, it's usually 2 to 3 pages of printed materials that I'll write, type up and then print, and then so I can scribble on. And that's generally what has worked so far. I have yet to really try and DM a campaign in something I've written, which but I already have freaking tab to hell Google Doc almanac of my campaign world because I'm that kind of person. But yeah, so I think to me, prepping,
Source book.
thinking about it by encounter is indeed. Thinking about it by encounter is really helpful, but then that is not as relevant for published modules, right? Because they're not necessarily written that way. You can prep by location, maybe. But anyway, I don't know. Will, what do you think?
So I'm kind of the opposite of you, where I've almost exclusively ran published, whether it's third party or official, one shots. But I've actually I was going back to memory lane here. The very, very, very first one shot I ever ran, I basically took the Delian Tomb idea that was Matt Colville's like example. He never meant it to
Oh
be
yeah,
like
sure.
an actual one shot, but I took the bones of it. I needed the map because at the time I was like, oh, I don't want to like try to recreate a map. It works. I like when he explained it. I sign on to that. But as far as like trying to hook the characters into it, I made up a different story around it. So in that case, this is very early on before I understood that if I write a lot of information down, I am never going to need a quarter of it. So like all the exposition that I need to do, I just need to like give them a description of a room. There were some things I changed, like the mural. There was like a mural description that I completely changed. There was like I completely changed the backstory of what the tomb was, and I had like actual backstories of different characters that were buried in the tomb that if they chose to read up on those characters, I did create like that. But it's kind of like any one shot though. What it's nice is that usually they keep it simple. It's like, what are the characters? If there's NPCs that are notable? What are their like? What's their vibe? What's their motivation? Are they just there, or are they integral to the plot? And are they going to try and like resist? Are they going to try and help? If there's any challenge checks to change their mind on something, what do those need to be? So basically, if I were to create my own, I basically would be the list of NPCs. What their general like personality is. If there are any skill checks, I just need to know what triggers those, and how. If I'm setting a difficulty in advance, what are they going to be? Most of them are like kind of in the moment, just feeling it out. But if they're ones where I'm like, yeah, this has got to be this difficult. If there's loot, where do they find it? And then stat blocks. Like stat blocks are like the main thing I need to have in front of me. Have that ready to go because I will look at them and try to understand like tactics for the combat. That's usually where I will do a little bit of homework of trying to like, okay, how do I make this a challenging encounter? Because if I've never run this type of monster before, I might underdo it or pull my punch unknowingly.
I literally did that last week.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot a certain stat block had legendary actions.
But I think
we reminded you.
Like the thing that is most likely to go wrong in a one shot is the monsters. Like you can improvise a lot else.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this a bit last week with Scott. I really like being able to toggle my monsters, especially for one shots.
Yep.
And I got this from playing through I think it was free at the time, the 2014 Vecna one shot, like the level 20 one shot they had on D&D Beyond. The way that stat block worked, you could toggle it a lot of different ways based on items, based on location. And I think that helps me feel a lot more prepared when I know that I can kind of respond in the moment if need be. And some of this is about your players, right? If you know your players, you can predict what you can throw at them. But especially if they're starting to put together either like min-max ridiculous multi-class break the game stuff, or if they're people that are like trying something new and don't really know how to like run it in an optimal way, that helps. I will say the Riddle of Many Things is the fewest notes I've ever taken into a one shot. by far. I'm kind of laughing here because it sounds like that prep was more like what both of you are doing, which makes me think maybe I should talk to you more in the future. Imagine that. I could learn from people. But I
A lot of
have
it's
to
up
print out
here.
my spells. Like if I have a spellcaster, I have a copy of those spells in front of me in writing because I prefer to do that than computer a lot of times. And I try, like, that's the part that always gets me. The other aspects of stat blocks are fine, but it's having a
Yeah.
grip on the spells that
Yep.
I will
I'll
say for the
definitely.
mystery one shots, I had rumor tables. I have it's like the first one, it was a little bit more specific. You had to be in like certain places for certain tables to apply. And I think that really messed y'all up, Will, when y'all went to Ketterdam, because I decided to make it a little more loose, where there were a lot more ways you could get things, but you were programmed to it matters where we go.
Oh
So you were
yeah.
expecting that, and I was like, just please talk to somebody. Just talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I roll the die. I give
I
you a clue. It was not clear. I did a really bad job at that, and that made that adventure last a lot longer than it needed to.
but it was a
They're
good
different approaches, but yeah.
as a player in that though. I think it was good just to sort of see how, like, okay, why are we being too meek? Are we like trying to like be too careful? Let's be a little more bold. Like, sometimes
Well, and
sometimes you have to figure out a way to motivate your players to like take that chance. Hey, there's this whole room in the dungeon you haven't explored. Maybe you want to go over there, and check
well,
it
I
out.
got too
Yeah.
sandboxy with that, where like you were never supposed to go to that party. I ended up changing the whole calendar of events because I think it was Jess, but one of you was like, we got to go to this party. So, and then, there were all these NPCs that one character's backstory brought in and things
Yeah.
like that, that looking back, I should have just been like, no, because I didn't know how to handle it as a DM. So,
Yeah.
and I think this is
So
another
here's
difficult side of it, right? Like, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I think this relates quite a bit in that, like, one thing that I think is always interesting to ask other DMs or other, see what other DMs think is like how much are you willing to put your thumb on the scale as a DM in just straight up telling your players don't do this or go do that, right? Because I think sometimes in a one shot that can be helpful, right? If it's like, you can kind of come above table and be like, hey, by the way, the pizza's coming in an hour and a half. Maybe we want to move this along. Like, I think, especially because, again, in a one shot, right, a one shot, a one shot. The idea is, right, you're getting through it and you all have signed up for that. So there is kind of an implicit agreement that, like, okay, maybe we're going to like do a couple of things that are a little artificial rather than, letting everything play out. But I think, never underestimate the power of just straight up telling your players, like, because the game you're all playing together, right? Like, it's something that you all have bought into. And if, you as the DM think like, okay, I think this will actually go a lot better if they know this one thing. It's not like I do this all the time. I think this is something you have to be very careful with, but I think it can be a useful thing, especially in one shots, to just be like, hey, go talk to that person, or like, hey, let's move on.
Yeah, I kept trying to do that by calling for being like, hey, does anybody want to do this skill check? Not all my players just go yes. And the thing is, when I say that to like one group I've DM'd for, that group is always like, oh, hell yeah, like we'll roll. The other one, it is 50-50 on the players. Like I think some of the players feel like it's cheating or that I'm tricking them. So I got some interpersonal conflict to work through clearly. But there are ways to do it that don't feel as artificial, but I do think you have to acknowledge that DMing a one shot is different than DMing campaign in that regard.
Yeah, I think it depends on exactly how critical to this plot story it is. Like if they have to talk to that NPC, I'll just have the NPC notice like you guys look like you're lost, or kind of like come up with some reason on the fly, like why would this character be maybe looking out for somebody like this, or
like conversely, this is Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's just you just find ways to kind of hook them a little bit harder by having the world kind of reach out a little bit more definitively.
Yeah.
And then usually somebody gets the hint. Usually.
Yeah. And like the converse
danger
of
of
this,
the
and
skill
the
check.
converse rather, it's well, Elizabeth, I think this is something you're very good at, and that's like having lots and lots of different ways to get to one thing, right? Like having lots of plans for like, okay, they talk to this person, they get to where they need to go eventually. If they burn down this tavern, they get to where they need to go eventually, right?
I think you're just describing how I run OTG.
Well,
Sorry.
it's been working so far.
It felt like okay, if this goes wrong on our way to Boston, if Will doesn't show up, here's the plan.
Contingency planning. It's important.
Yeah, I mean, either it's pathological and I need to work on my underlying anxiety, or it's just like being a disabled person.
Anxiety is a hell of a driver for preparation.
Yeah, but I do
that's
think
true.
I do think some people start getting frustrated when railroading. This is like, I have played for DMs on very few occasions, but I have played for some DMs who will literally only have one way for something to happen. And whether they've signaled it well enough or not, players did not pick up on it. So much conflict can come from those moments. Like, I do think it's not that everything your players say is going to be the right answer, but I think it is like being open to those moments where your players can be co-creating the adventure a bit more. It feels it's such a teaching thing too. It's like, where are my students going to take the conversation today that's not where I wanted it to go, but is actually going to lead somewhere really cool.
Right.
They're invested, they have power and agency in this. So sorry, Will, we tie pedagogy and DMing way too much.
It's all good.
I'm gonna have my players start. Actually, I do make my players roll initiative. I said I was gonna start, and it just occurred to me I do make them do that. For discussions, they roll d20s, and
you have done that, yes.
I do that, yeah. Anyway, so I think
early on when I was running one shots, I was very rigid. I was very like, okay, we have to follow this path. Things have to trigger these. These are the ways you have to like move forward. And maybe I would be like, are you sure you want to do that? I'd be a little bit more gentle with like nudging them, but with certain things, I think now I've just learned how to adapt to what they're doing and kind of just make it look like they stumbled on the right way. Just saying,
that's a classic.
Like, they didn't go into the tavern at all. Okay, the NPC they need to run to is in the alleyway. They decided to go down to chase the cat that appeared, and because I was silly and mentioned there was a cat, and now they're fixated on the cat, and now I'm stuck with this cat NPC that I have to now harness to make it work.
This is
extremely relatable content.
It's like, whether I'm trying not to even look at either of you because I've done it to both of you. I, as a player, to be fair, I think more than anything, it's funny how in this aspect, like DMing, teaching, and disability accommodations are all lining up in my brain for me. Because so much of it is like when you meet an access obstacle, or when you're not getting through to your students, or they're getting overwhelmed, or when like your players aren't getting it, you have to pause and figure out what your values are, what your priorities are, and like, is there a better way for me to get at this? Because I think with the really intricate actual play, with these like really ultra detailed published adventures, there's a sense in which like the DMs have created this world that you have to solve, you have to find the way through, and if you don't do it, it's your own damn fault. And I think we lose track of the idea that this is like collaborative storytelling. We want to actually be having fun. And I mean, the way this is going to manifest will be different for different groups. But I think this is one of the things that has historically kept this hobby feeling exclusive, is because if you have any sort of stress in your life above and beyond the average, you got kids screaming, or you only get one night off with, a babysitter, or, you're disabled and you're exhausted by the end of the day, or you're dealing with brain fog, or like you had to deal with some sexist jerk or whatever, right? You don't want that shit at your D&D table. Like, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be inclusive. It's not going to be accessible. So I can see also how like this is a subtle way that this hobby sometimes pushes people out. Is that attitude of like the DM is God, not
Yeah.
not like we're
Well, so
on the same team.
this relates to one of my favorite hobby horses, which is like we give too much primacy to the text. We are so much about the
Really should have placed
canonicity,
a bet in the chat.
about
I should have been like, Atlas, if I get this right, if I guess which one Chris is gonna say, like I get
Have
$5.
Yep.
have like a bingo card for who's going to say this.
Yeah. Did Chris talk about like texts and the
There's
death of the
just
author?
this twinkle in his eye when it's time to talk about the text.
Yes, I love talking about the
Spend too
text and
much time
throw it out.
here.
True. Anyway, point is, like, I think early on, a lot of us, when we're playing, especially if we're using published adventures, we hesitate to mess with it because it's like, this is the guidepost, right? This is the thing that I'm doing, right? It should be this. This is the story I'm telling. And I think the more that you can get comfortable with being like, it's whatever I want it to be. It's whatever we all say it is, like collaboratively together. And this is like the starting point. It is not the thing that it has to be. We do not have to conform to canon constantly. Again, like, we tell stories that ultimately share many outlines, but ultimately it's how you tell it, right? It's how you play with it. It's how you change things, or like little details around, or sometimes big details. And that I think like that's what is one of the things that I love most about D&D is kind of, this ability to mess with kind of received wisdom and received stories and received just culture, frankly.
I will
I think
say
like
our
that.
challenge on this was when we were playtesting and had multiple DMs running an adventure you wrote.
Yeah.
Because there was a point early on where we were trying to figure out how do we train people, how do we bring them up to speed. We ultimately landed on basically like they play the adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has to be an interesting feeling to write something, develop something, and give it to somebody else. And it's like, okay, now you run it.
And we'll have like
see what
It's really interesting.
three
see how
tables
that.
in the
Yeah,
same room, right? So
yeah.
like the same adventure being played for the playtesting, because like to get the feedback on the tools, we wanted the adventure to be not the thing we were worried about, and some consistency there. We're doing more qualitative analysis, but like still some degree of control, right? And then I just got to sit back every time and kind of run support and hear completely different stories being told,
Oh yeah.
completely different themes
Mm-hmm.
emerging. I love that like even the map was used differently. Gustavo's people almost always ended up in the kitchen. Like Chris's, I think yours went in the library more. I had
Yeah,
this in my head at one point, like where people were going and what they were doing, and it wasn't even. I think the thing that was fascinating to me is I couldn't catch any reason why you as DMs with completely different groups of people were getting these patterns. But as a result of where they explored and what they found, like it changed their experience. It changed the way they received like what happened next, even if what happened next was the same for everyone. And that's why D&D is so cool. Otherwise, just go play a video game. Like
Yep.
you can play a video game with
Well,
your
and
friends
like,
now too. But like, yeah, it's that mutability that's so cool.
Yeah.
and I think like this is what's cool about being an author for adventures is like it. First of all, like being an author for anything, right? Once it's published or once it's out there, it's not yours anymore. It's just out there, right? Like you have no control, and letting go of that control is incredible. Yeah, which I immediately stole. But I'll get to that in a second. Letting go of stories is letting go of the things you have written is incredibly scary and hard. And it was tough for me internally at the beginning to be like, but I wrote it, right? I'm gonna do it. It's my adventure. Like, and then once I got over that and people had it, I was like, wait, this is the best because people are doing just the most creative, insane, amazing stuff with this thing that I, gave them the basis for, but they're taking it in completely different ways. And then I get to steal it. Then I get to take all their good ideas. And this is co-creating a story too. Like I do players all they do things that I would never have thought of. And I love that because then it's just it adds that level of creativity. It adds new things. But it's still scary to like, I wrote this thing, I invested so
I
much time in
wonder
it,
how
but
many
now I
people
have to
have
let
had,
it go and be in the world.
yeah, like how many people have even had that experience? Because even if you
Yeah,
publish something, you don't necessarily know how people are using it.
Right.
You're not sitting there trying to DM while somebody else is like,
Yeah.
but it is that jazz
that's
metaphor,
true.
like so literally as somebody who was once upon a time a jazz trumpet player,
I,
like you've got the melody, you got the chords, you got the basics there, but then you're making it your own. Yeah, well, sorry. Chris and I are used to just interrupting each other.
No, it's okay. I will say like that is actually one of my preps. If I can find something, if it's the first time I've ever run something, I sometimes like to reach out to YouTube and find some lowly channel that's got like 100 views that happen to record themselves playing this one shot or this adventure.
Lil Peep was great for that.
And like occasionally you get some bigger channels that do it, or will do their, like this is how you run this thing. It's like, okay, those are good. But like seeing how like just certain people, just everyday people are running this thing, it just get a vibe for what works, what they change, and just kind of see, because that sometimes informs how I might change things, because everyone says, well, this works better if you do it this way. My players are these types of characters, so I had to like make sure that this type of challenge was more dialed up or something. And so I will definitely see what other people do, and I'll sit through a 3 hour recording of a live stream just to kind of get a vibe for, okay, this is how it runs, get a flavor for it. I
See,
think I mentioned before, like I'm just like a crab on the internet picking the bones of anything that's out there to try and obtain information on like how to just play the thing as best as I can, and that's where I overdo it.
It was Book of the
I
Raven that
it
taught me to do that in
Well,
Candlekeep.
Book of the Raven is a notorious one.
Yeah, but
mm,
there were so many. By the time I was running it, there were so many creative takes on how to adapt it and how to alter it
Yeah,
and what to use and what not to use.
that's where I
Um,
laid the
yeah,
first breadcrumb of the big bad at the very end. In that
mm.
adventure. That's how I made that work.
It's funny, like I am kind of the opposite. Like I try not to watch videos of people that are doing it. I think because I have this like anxiety of influence thing is like, oh, if I watch this, then I'm not good. Like I'm whatever. Just it's not going to be
Mhm.
mine, I guess. I don't know, but
can
like
I?
that's my own hang up, right? Like of
How
course it's going to
do
be
you do
like
that as a
the
conductor?
DM's choice, but
Like when you conduct, do you do that?
huh.
Because I feel like this is going to be.
This
Sorry, I
Well, so I
context here. I had very little training as a conductor. I went and auditioned and decided not to pursue it in grad school, whereas Chris did a graduate degree in conducting and has conducted an orchestra, like even as recently as like last academic year. So I am talking about
Mhm.
orchestral conducting for folks watching. This is a debate in that
and
field too, isn't it? Like
yes, yeah,
how much to
absolutely.
listen.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely listen to recordings, but I don't watch, or I try not to watch recordings, um, unless like I've already conducted it or I've already listened to it a bunch. Um, and in the same way, interestingly, although now it's a visual metaphor, I don't like to watch videos, but I will read things. And there's we can unpack that later, but I don't know what's going on there. But like when I ran Frost Maiden for y'all, which granted not a one shot, it's a big campaign, and one of the criticisms of that one is that like it's weird, it's hard to connect things because the chapters are written in extremely different ways. Like one chapter is extremely like just wide open. Here's Icewind Dale, go nuts, and the next chapter is like the most on rails like you
Mhm.
have to fight a dragon now thing that you've ever
And then you're
seen.
gonna jump on the
So
dragon, and then you're gonna ride the
yeah, and then
dragon,
yeah, the whole
and then
thing.
you're gonna bring your polar
Um,
bears.
hmm But anyway, the point is, I found a thing online. I forget the publisher, but basically, it was like here's a kit, basically of a bunch of ways, like with flow charts and like here's an order you can do this stuff in to like create this more of a sense of a story and a plot instead of just here's a bunch of sandboxes. Um, and that I found incredibly helpful. Um, with a one shot, again, I think partially because all the one shots I've ever run are my own. I just know what's in them, and so like I haven't had to go searching, in part because I can't.
It'd be really weird if you
So
found
yeah.
one. We're like, whoa.
Whereas, like,
Oh god, that.
I've never run a campaign, like a campaign.
Mhm.
Most of what I run, I write myself.
Mm.
So now I'm prepping to run the Vecna high level campaign, which I think was the last 2014, somewhere in there, one of the last 2014 books. And I'm that one feels like it's going to be a good balance of the two. So I think I'm going to be spoiled, but I will have like questions to ask you, especially if I do end up writing it for both groups, which is one of the scenarios that looks really likely, is that I'll actually be running two tables of chaotic people that run in different directions. I may have questions, spoiler-free questions for like, how do you
Mm.
I think the main reason I like will search out for like references and stuff like that is that, and I'll tie this to parenting because I got parenting advice. I think it was probably my in-laws. Is that advice is like paint. You know, you collect all the advice from all the people, but you get to pick and choose just how much you take from this bit of advice and this bit of advice, and then you get to paint your own picture with all of that. But you still have to at least hear it, listen to it, judge it, and kind of weigh. Oh, I like what this person did. I'm not going to stay away from that. This is completely different than anything that's written down. They completely reworked the story. Cool. And then it gives me kind of ideas like, okay, if I'm going to ham fist this character's backstory into this adventure, how could I do it artfully?
Well, and I
And
like
Yeah.
what you're saying about judging, right? Because
Mm.
what is one of the things that we hear in the more toxic corners of the space is like, yep, the way the Vistani were portrayed in such and such a source book is racist, but that's what
Sure.
the text says.
Right, exactly.
Like,
Yeah. Like, would you do that in the year
hey, you're
2025?
making a choice. Yeah,
Right.
you can make better choices.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you could definitely dial things up, dial things down, omit things,
I mean,
add things.
preferably only dialing the racism down, but yes, no.
Right, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was not what you said, but
We are not beholden to the text. Once
I-
you're
again.
not beholden to the text, which is really funny because that manifests in the OTG values is like exploding the myth of totality was one version of that where we're like, no one knows what we're talking about.
yeah,
This part of trying to
No,
explain what OTG was
that's
about
me and
has
my
gone
weird
through
academic
so
brain.
many revisions.
I've never gotten asked for advice on DMing for very much, and the one time I did, it was actually through someone my wife knows who happens to play D&D, and the question was to direct it to me. It's like the Tabaxi aren't native to Eberron, so how could I deal with the racism of a Tabaxi race in Eberron setting? I'm like looking at this. I'm like, oh no, you're already off on the wrong track. Like, please, like I don't think racism is fun.
Well, I'm thinking back to a time that
Maybe just treat them like strangers, outsiders,
well,
and call it that.
me and two
Like,
other white people, we had a story we wanted to tell, and to be fair, it was based on a TV show we were all watching together that Chris hadn't seen, was where this like idea came out. But it very quickly was at least an allegory for, if not like outright racism. And Chris is like, we're not doing that, white people. I mean, he didn't say the white people part out loud, but I heard it.
I'm having trouble remembering this.
So you're not, that's the thing. It didn't turn to a big thing because we listened to you. Although it is really funny that that's the party that was like virtually TPK'd. Remember we had 3
Oh right, yeah.
Genasi, and we had this whole story, and you're like, you know what? Neverwinter's not going to be that racist of a place.
we're just
Yep. We're just
dial that way.
everybody's fine with it. It's this is often my approach. Yeah.
If you got beef with somebody, it's because maybe they stepped on your toes or something, not because of who
like
they
maybe,
are as a person.
maybe they kicked
It's
a
also
cat.
part
Like,
of
yeah.
why, like, where the DM does say no. Like, I feel like we've talked a lot more about the trying to be more permissive as a DM and trying to let go of the reins because most of the time we err on the other side. But like, to be fair, there are times that you step in and intervene with the story, whether it's about safety, whether it's about values, whether it's, because your players are about to just
Yeah.
all die or make no progress. But there are times.
Well, those are fun stories where everyone dies.
Yes.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah. Well, okay.
bad rolls are the best stories.
We should put a pin in let's talk about racism in D&D, because that's a whole conversation, and one that I have feelings about. But we are
Like, if
also, I
people
think,
have
a little over
stories,
time.
we are. If people have stories to recommend, I know that we also want to do a like sexism in D&D one. Like, we also have some folks coming up who are going to talk, which nobody else on this call knows except for me, who are going to talk about different accessibility issues in D&D and how they're handled too. As a reminder, if you want to submit stories you find on the internet, things that have happened to you, questions you have, things that have happened to other people, we do have a link that is going to be both in the chat here in Twitch, but then also in the chat on YouTube. It'll be pinned. It's just a Google form that you can go to and fill out. So you can keep it anonymous if you want, or leave your name if you want a shout out, or you want us to reach out to you more. Submit your ideas for things you'd like us to talk about, but otherwise, we will see you in a week. Is there anything else, Chris, you want to say if anybody does watch to the end of this about, things happening on July 15th? Giving you one more time. Like, we will have one of these right before, but anything you want. You're DMing.
Amy Vorpal, that's all. That's what I'm saying.
It's gonna
be really fun. And also, like, oh my god, they have a whole the backstory that we came up with. The absolute is just bananas in the best way. I'm so excited. That's all I'll say.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be a good cause. I will reiterate, it is something where you can definitely watch, not donate any money, but there are also both individual rewards that you can donate if you want to get a shout out from the team, or if you want to impact how the game is played. Advantage and disadvantage for players. We don't judge. But also there will be different cool things unlocked based on milestones. So the collaborative donations, as we kind of move up to achieve our goal, will change things for the DM. So this is one where you can have a great deal of impact, and I will say both of our special guests are very, very good at incorporating things that are happening in the chat. So we'd love for you to come and play with us. That is on July 15th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll probably go for realistically more like 4 hours. So drop in at any point. But yeah, follow us on socials, reach out if you need anything. And as always, you're welcome to join the Discord too. Yeah, any last words, folks? For the stream.
Where's sunscreen?
Sunscreen. Is that just Chris's face is killing me? But...
Wait, bye. My internet is bad.